Views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Hello and welcome to Real Reviews. My name is Jameson Rabbit, and this week I am joined again by a face you know you love. He is our good friend, Steve Sabatke.
You know him, you love him, you can't live without him.
That's right.
What that is? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is my third time doing this now. So
Yeah.
third time the charm. I think I'm starting to get the hang of this.
Well, you've done excellent so far.
Just got to know which camera to look at.
Right, that's one of the big keys.
Yeah.
Once we get that figured out, the rest is just talking movies.
All right.
And because you're here, that means we have to be talking about a musical of some sort.
Yay.
So I'm going to get us started with what we have on the marquee this week. And the first thing we have is Dear Evan Hansen from director Steve Sabatke. This is the theatrical version of the hit Broadway musical. Stars Ben Platt, who reprises his role as the titular character of Evan Hansen. He's a teenager, a high schooler who feels alone, awkward. He's full of anxiety. He begins a program that's been suggested to him by his therapist to begin writing himself letters to kind of encourage himself and kind of get himself set on a good path each day. Thus, the title of Dear Evan Hansen. But it's when one of the letters that he writes to himself is discovered by another student, a student named Connor, who's played by Colton Ryan. Connor is he's a bit of a recluse himself in the school. He's finds himself in trouble quite a bit, but he finds one of Evan's letters to himself in the school printer, and then the story starts to spin out of control. Of course, Evan feels embarrassed by it, but it gets worse when he finds out. No spoiler here, but that Connor commits suicide very early in the movie. And his parents have found this letter that he had in his pocket that was says Dear Evan Hansen on it. And they assumed that it was a letter that Connor had intended for Evan. And this is where Evan could be truthful in a tough situation with grieving, but hopeful parents looking at him. But instead, he lies and says, oh, no, that was for me. Yeah, we were friends. And that's kind of an enduring character trait of Evan throughout this movie is just one lie begets another lie. And he lies about being Connor's best friend. He creates these fake emails, this whole backstory about their friendship. And he lies to Connor's sister Zoe, played by Caitlin Dever. He lies to the whole student body, basically, is they kind of make Connor something to champion around because, we let him down. And,
right.
And this letter goes on to spin so many things out of it. And the movie tries to deal, it is a musical, it deals with, not being left behind. You reach out to someone because they might be struggling. It's, it deals with the teen trauma, but it also does it in song, which I thought was kind of strange. I don't know. I had no frame of reference for this. I had not seen the Broadway show or anything like that.
I know it won the Tony for Best Musical, and I think Ben Platt won for Best
Actor. I believe he did,
yeah.
yeah.
And it was because of that I really wanted to be a cheerleader for this movie. And I just couldn't get there.
Uh-oh.
I couldn't get there. And usually, I'm the musical guy, I should be loving this. But while I'm watching this and also checking my watch at the same time, I kept asking myself, would I enjoy this more if it was on stage as opposed to it being on film? Because, this film is supposed to pack an emotional punch.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of underlying themes to it. And I just couldn't get to that emotional connection. I had read an article somewhere that Ben Platt, when he did the stage version, I think in 2015, he invested so much into the performance, the singing through the crying, the facial tics, the expressions, the physical expressions. that the New York Times wrote an article wondering whether or not this role was causing him emotional harm.
Right, yeah.
Because he put so much into it. And he does that here, and he does a fine job. And let's talk about the elephant in the room. I know there's been a lot of backlash about him being 27 years old when he filmed this. That didn't bother me at all. He's not the first actor in their 20s to portray somebody that's in high school, so I didn't even think about that. But I just thought, maybe this musical would have more of an impact on me had I saw this one on stage.
I don't know. I struggled with this. First off, stories like this give me high anxiety when a character is just keeping spinning plates going with lies on top of lies.
Yeah.
Like, that gives me anxiety. I don't like that, and this was a lot of that. And
but that was the story.
It is, but the problem
was part of the stage version.
The problem is, I found him, our protagonist, to be incredibly unlikable.
Okay.
I could not root for him. He was a heinous character doing terrible things to a grieving family because I couldn't tell the truth. And I kind of also wanted to be part of their family, and I got a crush on the sister, and so him trying to play naive didn't work for me, especially because he's not a 16-year-old kid. It's a guy who looks like he's 30 trying to play naive in a high school, and so that did kind of give me issues. And he's very manipulative in this movie, and I also thought that the inciting incident is just a hokey series of misunderstandings. We found this note, blah, blah, and I think that is just kind of, I don't know, not super clever. And I love musicals. I thought that the music in this movie was not great.
Well, yeah,
I think that it felt like it was made by an algorithm.
It was kind of clunky.
You.
I mean, because a lot of the music starts with what you think is going to be dialogue, and then they start singing the dialogue, and then it kind of morphs into a full-blown song. A lot of the songs kind of sounded the same to me.
Exactly.
They all kind of blended together. There were a couple highlights. I think the opening song was good. And then the only one that I recognized was "You Will Be Found."
Sure.
I've heard that before. Yep. And I also read that the director of this changed the ending a bit to make Evan, I guess, receive a bit more punishment than what he got in the stage version.
And I thought that...
But I've never seen the stage version, so I don't know.
That was one of my complaints, though, is that, like, I never felt like he had any repercussions for what he did. Like, I felt like it was just like a slap on the wrist and everything's fine. Oh, sorry, I lied. I don't know. I had a hard time with it. It kind of focuses on this guy who is not a great person and caused a lot of harm to everyone he came into contact with. And I don't know. I liked the message that it was trying to get to, but I never connected with the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that going in because this movie's been really getting beat up.
It has. It has.
It's really getting beat up, and so I knew that going into it. So I took more of the focus of whether or not I'm actually going to be entertained by it. Mm-hmm. And to me, it was just an average musical that I probably will never ever see again.
So what did you end up giving Dear Evan Hansen?
Average musical, average score, 2.5 stars.
Yeah. I talked about a movie last week. Everyone's talking about Jamie that I really enjoyed. Dan Presser talked about it with me. We both enjoyed that. I would rewatch Cats again rather than rewatch this one because at least Cats was fun to goof on. This wasn't fun.
I thought Cats was much worse than that.
This was just depressing for a lot of the wrong reasons, and I did not enjoy this movie. I ended up giving Dear Evan Hansen 1.5 stars. It's a movie I'm not going to revisit anytime soon. But let's go to our streaming spotlights here. We go to Netflix. What do you have for us?
All right, well, it's The Starling, and it's directed by Theodore Melfi, and it stars Melissa McCarthy and Chris O'Dowd as Lily and Jack Maynard, who are trying to cope after the death of their baby daughter from SIDS. Now, Jack's in a residential psychiatric facility where he gives smart aleck responses to a psychiatrist. He pretends to take his medicine each day. And Lily, she's at home dealing with her feelings on her own. Now, she works at a grocery store where she gets distracted over the location of a Hostess snowball display. She visits Jack once a week, but that doesn't seem to help. And a counselor at the facility tells Lily to see a psychiatrist named Larry Fine. Yes, it's a direct Three Stooges reference. She does that only to find out that Dr. Fine, who's played by Kevin Kline, is no longer a psychiatrist. He is a veterinarian. But because this is a movie and because it's Kevin Kline, he agrees to see her. Now, there's a fourth character in the movie, and it's a Starling, hence the title of the film, who has a nest where Lily is trying to start a garden. And the Starling keeps attacking her, keeps running into her head. She becomes obsessed with trying to stop it. And the bird plays a pretty significant role throughout the film. And it's either a CGI bird or it's just the best darn trained bird I have ever seen in a film. Now, you would think, based on my description of this movie, that I'm going to give it a low rating. On the contrary, I am not. I actually enjoyed this. Now, the movie does everything it can to get you to cry. It just pulls out all the stops, the music, the dialogue. There's a scene in the vet's office involving a boy who brings his dog in to be put down. There's a subplot later on with the bird in the film that I'm not going to reveal. But everything they threw at me, it worked. I mean, I was a blubbering mess during the second half of this film.
I love it. That's great.
Were you?
No.
No, okay.
Here's my issue, and this is 100% personal for me, because I like Melissa McCarthy. I like it when she plays more of a dramatic role. I think she's effective in that. My thing is personal. My greatest fear in the world is birds. And I had to look away from the screen multiple times because that is my waking and sleeping nightmare is being dived down by birds.
Wow.
And so it really triggered me.
So this was kind of like Alfred Hitchcock, The Birds for you.
Very much to me, very much. Yeah, it was definitely triggering me throughout the movie as this bird is dive bombing her, hitting her in the face. Like, no, this is my nightmare. So I really had a hard time investing in it because I don't know. That was just my own issue. I do like how he was dealing with this dark subject matter of his mental break, their grief, and how they handle grief separately. And I thought that they treaded that line fairly effectively. I did struggle a little bit with how Chris O'Dowd's character as Jack was handled. Especially as the movie went along, I felt like his character, I had a harder time staying with how his character was reacting, but it's an enjoyable enough movie.
Yeah, I mean, Timothy Oliphant plays her boss in the grocery store, and that's really a wasted role.
Way underused.
Yeah, he's in a couple of scenes where he tells her to get it together, you know, because I think in one scene she gets distracted and she marks everything down to a nickel.
Right.
And then you've got other, David Diggs, who I think was in Hamilton. He plays an art counselor at the psychiatric facility, and he's only in a couple of scenes. So there's some actors in here that really are not utilized the way they should be. I mean, I'm personally not a big fan of Melissa McCarthy, but I do like her in films where she does show some restraint, and she does show that here.
Yeah, I mean, if she's not falling down a flight of stairs, I think she's a good actress.
Yeah, and we do need to see more movies with Kevin Kline. I mean,
it's great to see him.
He's one of my favorite actors. Now, I would have liked to have known more of his backstory in the film. You don't really understand, other than the fact that I think he was getting tired of being a psychiatrist and dealing with people's problems, why he goes into becoming a veterinarian.
Yeah. Well, I think we have different scores. What did you end up giving the Starling?
I gave it 3.5 boxes of Kleenex.
Oh,
I mean, it really,
I love it.
It affected me. It really did.
That's great.
Plus, I'm a crier.
Yeah, I gave it 2. I probably would hedge more to 2.5.
Strictly because of the bird?
I would probably go more towards 2.5. I turned my score in like a week ago. I would probably go a little high to 2.5 right now. But it was all right. Yeah, birds, man, heart palpitations when I see up close.
That was a CGI bird, though.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope there's not a trained one out there doing that. He'll find me. Let's move on to our next film, which also stars another animal. It is Pig, from director Michael Sarnowski. Stars Nicolas Cage as a man named Robin Feld. He is a reclusive, kind of depressed truffle hunter who has been living out in the Oregon wilderness with his foraging pig, and we find that he's been here for the last 15 years, living in this little cabin with little interaction with the rest of the world, other than Amir, who's played by Alex Wolff, who comes in from the city, buys his truffles, and sells them in the city to restaurants. It's big business. One evening, Rob is attacked in his cabin, and his treasured pig is stolen. And this pig is his everything. It's his best friend, and he enlists Amir to take him around to retrieve her. And Amir is very image conscious. He's trying to build his name amongst the elite in the city. He doesn't want to be seen with this homeless looking guy looking for a pig, but he's coerced into it. And Rob really doesn't care about any of that. He just wants to get his pig. He doesn't care how he looks, how he smells. And as the drama unfolds, we get glimpses into who Robin Feld was before he fled the city of Portland 15 years ago. He has this mysterious past, and we find out that he was well known and a highly respected man. And as the film progresses, we see it felt to me like he was almost a John Wick character where everybody knew him, revered him, almost feared him, even though he'd been gone for years. He has his ways, several of which are very strange, in order to find his pig. But on each stop along the way, as they travel along, it reveals a little bit more about him, adds some humanity to his character. We also meet Adam Arkin, is Amir's father, who shares some traits with Rob, and we see that loss and pain has kind of shaped both of these men in different ways. And I thought this film was really beautiful looking.
Oh yeah, it really is.
I mean, really, really great. I thought it was really smartly told, really emotionally effective for me in how they kind of parceled out.
You're not
things.
Afraid of pigs?
No, I'm fine with pigs.
All right.
And Nicolas Cage, I feel like doesn't discern between movie scripts anymore. He just says, "I'll do it."
Yeah.
I'll make whatever. Every once in a while, he has one, and this for me was one that I thought he really nailed the performance, and it kind of all came together.
Well, when was the last time you saw a really good Nicolas Cage movie? And don't say Willy Wonderland.
I liked him in Mandy a couple years ago, but that was also a very out there movie.
But that was an over-the-top, ultra-violent
Yes.
Nicolas Cage movie. I mean, there was Rage Cage in that,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And this one caught me completely by surprise because just when you think this is going to turn into that,
You think it's a revenge story?
that's right. Where's my pig? And then
Yeah.
he just takes names and whatever. It turns into something completely different. I mean, other than because this does take you also into the seedy underbelly of the Portland restaurant
It goes places
scene.
I was not expecting.
Whether that exists or not, I don't know.
Like a fight club?
Yeah. I mean, other than the scene that there is a restaurant worker fight club scene, Cage uses his words, not a lot, but he uses his words, his physical expressions, and his skills as a master chef to try to get this pig back. And to me, one of the best scenes in the movie is when he goes to a restaurant and meets with a chef who used to work for him.
Yeah.
And he has a long conversation with the chef, and he's trying to get this guy to tell him where his pig is. And there's a line in that conversation where he says, "We have so very little that we care about."
Yes.
And I thought, oh, wow.
Great.
It's a
subdued-
fantastic line.
It's a subdued performance. And there's some scenes where he looks like he's a hulking character, especially when he goes to his club. It's like, oh my God, they got Nicolas Cage, and he's covered in, he's getting bloodied up. He doesn't care. He's scraggly haired, but there's heart. This is a love story. You can see the humanity in him because he just cares about this one thing.
It's a great performance.
Yeah.
I think it shows that he's still one of the greatest actors working today.
When he wants to be.
When he wants to be, despite some of the other stuff he's done lately. I really hope that he gets recognized for this come Oscar nomination time. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But he deserves it.
I was
this.
really moved by this film and by his performance. I found by the end of the movie, it also delves a little bit into territory that Jon Favreau's Chef went into a few years back, and I kind of dug that. We really see what his love of food is, and yeah, I was way more moved than I was expecting to be in this film.
Yeah, I mean, it like I said before, completely surprised me. I mean, just when I thought, that it was going to go one direction, it goes another direction. And it kind of gets you a little bit of insight into his past, but not a lot. But I think that makes the movie even more special.
I agree.
To give us all that information.
So what did you end up giving Pig?
I gave it 4.5 stars. I think it's going to end up on my best of 2021 list.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
I concur with you. I gave it 4.5 stars as well. I love that we agree on this. Yeah, it's one of the better movies that I've seen in a while. And a surprise, too, which is great. I had hopes for it because I'd heard things, but it lived up to everything and more. So.
I mean, if there's people out there that are thinking, well, it's not the Nicolas Cage movie I want to see. I think he's got one now out called Prisoner of the Ghostland.
Yeah, right, there you go.
I don't know if you've seen the trailer for it,
but
that's Rage Cage.
That's more of his old real.
Yeah, and this one, it comes out on DVD, I think, November 2nd.
Yeah,
so.
Check it out.
Yeah.
The last movie we have for our streaming spotlight, sir, what do you have for us?
All right, I've got The Mad Women's Ball. It's on Amazon Prime. It is a French film directed and co-written by Melanie Laurent. She played Shoshana in the Quentin Tarantino film Inglourious Bastards. I'm going to just totally butcher these French names, but the film stars Lou Delage as Eugenie, a young woman who comes from a wealthy family in late 18th century France. She doesn't act how a young woman should act according to her strict aristocratic father. She goes to cafes to smoke and read books she shouldn't be reading, and she speaks out against the routines that young women have to go through to get presented to high society. And oh, by the way, she hears from dead people.
Sure.
Her father finds out about that and has her committed to the Salpêtrière mental asylum, which from what I read actually existed.
Yeah.
And this place is a nightmare. The women patients there are abused. They have to endure some pretty cruel and humiliating treatments.
Tortured.
Yeah. One woman is sexually assaulted by a doctor. It's a horrible place. Laurent's direction makes it look very real. There are times when this is a tough movie to watch. But Laurent's in the film too, and she stars as Genevieve, who is the head nurse. And first, she's pretty cold to Eugenie, but then she starts to warm up to her through a plot twist, which I don't think I'm going to reveal. But the title of the movie, The Mad Women's Ball, refers to an annual event at the asylum where all the patients are dressed up in costume. They bring in members of high society to come in and gawk at them and do some pretty unspeakable things with them. I really love these period dramas. This is her 5th film as a director. Like I said, the look of this is very realistic. Yeah. The costumes, the sets, the activities on the streets, it all looks very authentic. And she's got a balancing act that she has to she kind of goes through with this film, because on one hand, she wants you to feel compassion for these patients. She wants you to believe that they don't belong there, that the real mad people are the people from the outside looking in, such as the doctors. But then on the other hand, she also wants you to believe that Eugenie really hears from the dead, that this is actually happening. And for the most part, I thought it worked.
I did too. I was really affected by the treatment of the women in this movie.
Yeah.
And just how they could be deemed mad by any man, basically, in their life, and how almost all the women in this movie were turned by these men who they were stabbed in the back, thrown in there for any reason you could have. She's mad, throw her in there, and then the doctors are using, under the guise of science, just experimental treatments and torture on these women. And it was horrible to see them. But there were some characters that I liked. I really liked, there's... her friend Louise that she met when she first came in, who showed her around, blah, blah, blah. I really liked her, but she was also, she had her own issues. I love the ball when we get to the masquerade. You have another nurse. Was it Jean, who's kind of the Nurse Ratched in the group, and it does have a little Cuckoo's Nest vibe in here. As we're
it reminded me a little bit of that, yes.
But you get to the masquerade ball, and watching them all get so excited for this and build up to it and getting dressed up and all the makeup, and so much happens in this ball, and there's so many things happening during that final sequence, and there's people with very different intentions using the cover and the hysteria of the ball to cover for them. But I was really drawn into the story and kind of affected by how these women were manipulated and discarded so easily, and how they were able to still, at the end of the movie, they were able to find joy and salvation in each other, and that gave me some hope at the end. I found myself very happy about how it wrapped up for the most part, had me smiling through some misty eyes.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, the movie does have a couple of head-scratching moments. I mean, there's a scene where the women are taken to a church service, and after it's over, one of the women, who I guess never spoke before, suddenly stands up and starts singing a song about her mother. And that's the scene, and it's really never referred to again. And you kind of think, okay, well, what happens after that? She kind of goes back to the way she was before. But for the most part, I mean, the acting here is first rate. And
Eugene, she was great.
She is fantastic. Yeah.
Really, really good. Yeah. And Melanie Laurent, I liked her a lot. And kind of a duplicitous character at moments.
Yeah, and again, the look of this film, I mean, I would have just loved to have been, especially these street scenes. I mean, how did they make those look so authentic? Streets. Yeah.
She's emptying the latrines. I could smell that street. It was, it looked amazing.
It really did. So.
Yeah, excellent. Your score for Mad Women's Ball?
I gave it 4 stars, but I did dock it 1 point for overuse of a cello in the soundtrack.
If I can dock it for birds, you can dock it for cellos.
Well, I mean, am I wrong? Are more and more films using just the cello for the music?
It's effective.
It can be effective, but I thought, okay, I've heard this before.
I love it. I agree with you again. I gave it 4 stars as well. Really enjoyed it. It's worth your time. I believe it's over on Amazon
Prime. It does have subtitles. Yeah. Please don't let that scare you away from it. It's worth watching.
Watch it. It's a good one. All right, sir. Let's take a look ahead at what is coming soon. I'm looking at the weekend of October 8th. We have a few films. The first one is a film that has been pushed back so many times. But James Bond is finally here.
I've been waiting for it.
No Time to Die. Daniel Craig's final film in the 007 tuxedo. Sadly, I wish he could do it forever, but
I guess it's 2 hours and 40 minutes long.
I'm there for it. I'm good. Yeah. We finally get No Time to Die on October 8th. We also have a film that I'm very curious about. Ties in with a film that we talked about today. It's an A24 film called Lamb. Just another movie about some craziness.
I've seen the trailer for it. It looks a little strange.
It looks incredibly strange, but I'm excited for it. So that will be coming out. There's also on Netflix to be a horror movie because it is the month of October. So we get horror movies of all types of quality. This one is called There's Someone Inside Your House. I'll let you guess what happens there. I believe it's the first horror movie to use that idea. We also want to thank our sponsor, Marcus Theaters, The Palace here in Sun Prairie. Thank you for sponsoring this program. We do appreciate it. We love ourselves a dream lounger for these films. Next week, I'm going to be reviewing such films as Venom, Let There Be Carnage, The Many Saints of Newark, The Guilty, and The Eyes of Tammy Faye with a special guest. You'll want to tune in to check all that out. Steve, thank you again for joining me.
Hey, thank you, Jameson. I really enjoyed it.
We're making this a regular occurrence. Just get used to Steve being here next to me.
I know there's more musicals yet coming up this year.
There's more than that.
There's more than that, Steve. Oh, this is the time now where the really good stuff starts coming out.
I mean, I've already got you circled for West Side Story. Yes. It's a lock. Don't worry, no one else can take that.
Thank you.
Really looking forward to that. But yeah, hope to have you back on very soon. Until next week, though, I'm Jameson.
And I'm Steve.
Thanks for watching.